Hello, it's True to Sade, and I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time now. I didn't want to make my partner feel some type of way about it, but this is my channel and I pride myself on being very transparent on my channel. I've talked about so much stuff. But when it comes to relationships and stuff like that, or my relationship, I try to keep some things private, but this is a subject that I'm just so like, I wouldn't say bothered by, but it's almost like an elephant in the room, especially being pregnant now. Like family members or different people like that, or people I know, they'll be like, okay, so when are you guys getting married? And when people say that, I'm just like, it's not up to me. I'm not about to get down on a bended knee and ask him. So I don't know when we're getting married, but just a little bit of history on me and my partner. We've been together for 7 years now, a little over 7 years. And, I've been married before. I was married for almost 8 years. We were all together for 10. So after about 2.5 years, we got engaged and we just, went and got married. We actually went and got married when I was pregnant with our second son, which is funny because I'm pregnant now with me and my current partner's second son. But we went and got married, and it was a very it wasn't a great marriage. I'll say that. It just wasn't a great marriage. The love was there and the chemistry was there, but there was no respect, and amongst so many other things that maybe I'll do some story times on, but I can't say after I filed for divorce and stuff, I can't say that I had this thing in my head of, I never want to get married again. I never felt that way. I knew, to be honest, that I would end up getting married again. It's not something I was seeking, but I just kind of figured maybe I'll get married again, My partner, he's been married before also. And through conversation, I don't think he ever had that feeling of he never wanted to be married again. But so when we initially got together, we talked about marriage and stuff like that. He would, but it wasn't anything that was like on my radar. I wasn't really pressed about it at all. Even when we had Kobe, I had desired a baby for years, and we had agreed, like, after we were together for a certain amount of time, that we would try for a baby, and that's what happened, and we had him. So now I will say this: back in 2021, he did ask me to marry him, and it was, seeing the ring, it was the most beautiful ring. I loved it, but in that moment, I turned him down because I didn't feel like we were at that point in our relationship where we should have been getting engaged. So I hated that I turned him down, but I just knew, like, this isn't what I would want to marry at this time in our lives. So after that, I I didn't really have any type of, like, when we hit our 4-year mark and, all that kind of stuff, I just didn't have that type of feeling of, oh my God, when is he gonna marry me? Is he gonna marry me? I want to get married so bad. Like, hint, hint, please put a ring on it, type thing. I just, was living life, and I was comfortable with where we were in our relationship. So time just ended up progressing, and that was that. Well, to be honest, for the past like year, it's started bothering me. Like, hold up, why aren't we married? And I think the only reason I started feeling that way is because the reason why I started feeling that way is because I felt like social media had kind of got in my head, and I would like read different comments and stuff, and from other relationships of people that was in a 5-6 year relationship without being married, and I would read different people's comments, and they would say stuff, and I would think, dang, is that how he feels about me? Is that why he hasn't asked me again? But all in all, in my heart, I knew that I was comfortable in the place that we were in. But then as time progressed, like I said, things did start bothering me, and, I felt like I was playing a role of a wife. For real. I felt like I was really playing the role of a wife. And I'm like, I'm not your wife. There's no reason why you should get the benefits of as if I am your wife. And because you're really never going to marry me. Why would you marry me? If I'm acting like a wife, like, you're not going to marry me. So, I've definitely have pulled back within the past, like, a lot. I've pulled back a lot. Now, one thing that I refuse to do, now I'm OCD, so I'm always going to make sure the house is clean. He's always going to come home to a clean house. Of course, I'm going to do laundry. I'm going to fold his laundry. I'm going to put it up. I make sure all his stuff is organized. I make sure everybody's stuff is organized. I had, I took on like taking pride in basically being like a step parent to his daughter. I would go out of my way and always being available. I don't care what it was for. I always made myself available, and I always did for her like I would my own children. And so, after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm about to start pulling back, because it's just not fair for me, as years have progressed. So I've pulled back a lot. And the one thing I'm like, I'm not going to make sure you come home to a home cooked meal. No, I'm not. I'm not going to make sure, just because you want intercourse, if I don't want it, we're not doing it. And that's that. You're not my husband. So I'm not going to go out of my way to satisfy you as if you're my husband. So if I'm not in the mood, you're not my husband. So I'm not going to be cooking and just doing all these things as if I'm your wife. I've even pulled back in other departments too, because, I felt like, where is it getting me? You know what I mean? Like, so I do things when I want to do them. If I want to cook, if I want to, play a step-parent role, like, it's not going to be because someone is expecting me to do something. I'll do it when I feel like it. I'll do it if I want to. Another thing that one thing I'm against is purchasing a house and you're not my husband. So like when we moved out of our last house, there was conversations of us purchasing a house, and I'm like, absolutely not. I will not purchase a house with a guy that's not my husband. I'm not going to do it. So, I always said, you know, we just get a rental, which we're here, you know. But I always thought after we moved from here, then we would purchase a home together. But it seems like we're still not married, so that is kind of up in the air because, you know, and rent is just raising and raising. I know sometimes it'll be the smartest thing to do, you know, to purchase a house, but no, you know. Another, and there's reasons why I feel like I'm just not in a rush to get married. You know, there's religion issues that I feel like we have not compromised on at all. And there's just no compromising. It hasn't been any compromising in about 7 years. So I'm like, why would I want to marry? Why would I want to marry this? And I know how life is going to be. It's already bothering me right now. It's already a huge issue right now. You know, going to counseling and different issues that we've have, I feel like those things really wasn't even resolved in counseling. So, like, to be honest with you, if he was to ask me to marry him today, I would literally be like, because there's just some things that I don't want to. I hate dealing with, and you know, him being my, I don't like saying boyfriend, girlfriend, because we're too old for that, but just our relationship right now, it bugs the crap out of me. So and nothing has changed for the most part, so why would I want to marry into that? One thing I take pride in, like sometimes I feel like I stayed in my marriage longer than what I should have. I definitely did. But I grew up without a dad, and that has been one of my lingering pains. You know, that was like my first heartbreak, you know. So one thing I always prided myself on was my children having that foundation of being in a household with both parents for a certain amount of time, to where, you know, they have that they have that foundation of mom and dad under the same roof. So like when I did divorce my my two oldest sons, they knew how it was to have mom and dad under the same roof for a number of years. Even though they were truly affected by our divorce, they knew who dad was. It wasn't, you know, dad coming to get them every blue moon or something like that. They had that experience of having the both of us and us being hands-on with them and being a family. They had that family unit. So, you know, me being in this relationship, to be honest with you, I probably would have moved out a long time ago, but I do want, you know, I appreciate that Kobe is being raised in a two-parent household. And I don't know how things will be moving forward since we're having another baby. But I mean, it would be ideal if both of our sons could be raised in a two-parent household. Now, one thing I feel like I rushed into was moving in with him. I moved in with him like that. I mean, I knew him. He wasn't a stranger. We had dated a couple years prior to us getting back together. So I knew him and stuff like that. But when we got back together, I had my own place. So, you know, I would visit his place. He would come and visit mine. We would stay the night and stuff like that. But I was already planning on moving out of my place because, you know, I was struggling with substance abuse, and I knew I needed to get out of the city that I was living in at that time. And so, you know, me and my sons ended up moving in with him, which I remember being so scared. I was really scared because I had never just like moved in with a man before, that was the first for me. So, that was a lot on me. I was like really scared. But, there's things that you find out about a person, and if that person, I'm OCD. So, if that person is clean, how that person, keeps up, their environment, religion, that was not discussed enough. And I just wish that we would have lived separately before we just jumped into it. You know what I mean? And so it's funny because a lot of the issues that we've had back then, we have now. And so, but moving along, like I said, this past year, like I was almost okay with not being married, until I started thinking like, why has it been this amount of time and you haven't asked me, again, like, why, like, what are you waiting for? Now I wouldn't say I would turn them down again. It's not like you get engaged and then you just get married the next day. So, being engaged and then trying to continue to work on things, I would be up for that, but I really let social media get in my head. And now I'm to the point where I'm just like, I'm not okay with it. I'm just not okay with it. And and one of the biggest reasons is I'm not okay with shacking up anymore. I feel like I'm sinning. Well, I am sinning. I'm shacking up with a man. We're having babies out of wedlock. And I'm just not okay with it anymore. It's getting dark because I think it's about to start raining, so it's getting real dark. So the light that was coming in, it's very dull now. But I won't be too much longer. But yeah, I'm just not okay with shacking up, sleeping together, having babies with each other, and what are we doing? I'm done playing house. I don't want to play house anymore. And so, I'm in the process. I want to further my relationship with God, and I want to be more like God. And I'm 40 years old now. I'm tired of this whole, like, just the whole setup, so, my thing is, I don't want to leave him, but I do feel like if we're going to continue to date or, try to further our relationship, I feel like it's okay to do it from separate households. We don't have to live together, especially if marriage is nowhere on his mind. Now, when talking to him, he talks about marriage all the time. Anytime he talks about it, you would think he was about to propose to me the next day or something. I mean, he literally will say, like, we're getting married. I'm going to propose to you. I'm like, he talks like he knows exactly what he wants, but I feel like his actions don't really match with what he's saying. And so now as time is progressing, I'm like, okay, like, what's up? You know what I mean? So I wrote down some different comments that I've seen on social media, that, some I'm like, okay, yes, that's true. That's how I feel. And then some are just like, Now, I don't know if I'm going to read all of them. Maybe I'll comment on the ones that I read or whatever, but this is what people think, so let's start. Okay, so someone said, a man will only continue being with a woman unmarried if that woman allows it. She must know her worth and hold herself at a high standard. And I don't think I have a comment about that. I know my worth, and maybe I do need to hold myself at a higher standard, but like I said, it's been 7 years now. Half of those years, I didn't even want to be married. You know what I mean? And I think now, being pregnant, and especially being pregnant, I'm just like, okay, what are we doing? Because anyway, okay. Never mind. Okay, I have to beat this darkness that's coming in. Okay, someone else said, dating her for 5 years and making kids and buying a house together while fearing getting married is soft boy error at its finest. They said it. I didn't say it. So, I mean, no comment on this one either. Okay. This one says, it's giving single till married. And I agree. I agree with that. Yes, we are a 2-parent household, but in reality, I'm a single woman. I'm not married. And that's why a lot of the things I used to do, I've stopped. I used to pride myself on doing a whole list of things, but I'm single. So someone say, y'all be trying to force men to rush things and then wonder why your marriage falls apart. And I agree. I feel like with my first marriage, when I found out I was pregnant with our second son, like I grew up in the church. I have a close relationship with God. I am saved. I am filled with the Holy Spirit. My lifestyle may not reflect that, but nonetheless, I definitely believe in God. So when I found out I was pregnant with me and my ex-husband's second son, I'm like, and we were living together too, I'm like, absolutely not. Either we're getting married or we're not about to be shacking up and I'm having babies. I'm just about to be having babies out of wedlock. No. And so I always felt like, dang, did I rush him to propose to me and for us to get married? Like, and knowing how that marriage turned out, So this time around, I've tried to pride myself on not rushing him, at anything, for the most part, I really won't talk about it. I maybe have talked about it here recently within the past, year or so, but usually like the first 5 years, I didn't really talk about it. So no, I agree with that. I'm not okay with rushing a man into marriage because I see where that got me the first time. Someone said there shouldn't be a timeline for these things. And I agree. You have so many people who's like, oh, it doesn't take a year. It doesn't take 2 to 3 years to know if you want to marry her. A real man knows after 6 months if he wants to marry you, and this and this and this. And I just feel like it shouldn't be a timeline on that. I hate when people say that. Someone said, some should take longer because the divorce rate is at 50%. And I agree. Divorces are very common nowadays, more than maybe what they used to be. And marriage is easy to get into, but it's hell to get out. I went through a lot getting, through my divorce and stuff, and not financially, because it was like we didn't have anything to split up or anything like that. But what I went through mentally and emotionally was hell. Someone said, it took my husband 1 month to decide he wanted to marry me. It took me longer. It's been 30 years though, no regrets. Okay. Someone said, people be having kids within those 5-6 years, but all of a sudden they've taken their time for marriage. Okay, well, you know, and I'm gonna be honest with this. Look, some of us are not getting younger, so our fertility window is ticking. So yeah, maybe, you know, having Kobe, you know, and not being married, but when I had Kobe, I was 35, so I was thinking like, you know, it's now or never. Whatever. We're not gonna talk about this pregnancy. Whatever. Someone said, but sometimes it takes that amount of time to hash out underlying problems you don't want to be stuck with for the rest of your life. Don't let social media force you into making mistakes trying to move fast. Take your time, move at your own pace, and make your own decisions. There's no rule book or handbook. And I agree with that. That's where I'm at right now. I would rather want to fix the problems and the underlying issues before we make that step. But you can also do that during an engagement too. So like, don't string me along the way. But I agree with that. This was like one of my favorite ones, actually. Someone said, maybe she's trying to decide about him. I'm gonna read that again. Maybe she's trying to decide about him. And I completely agree with that, because now at this time in my life, I keep saying like, well, dang, if he was to ask me, would I want to say yes this time? Like, I don't know if I would, you know, I'm still trying to decide, like, is this something I can live with forever? I was about to say something like, sometimes I barely want to live with it now. So I hope he don't watch this video. Or I hope you don't make it, like, watch the whole thing. If you do, Torian, I love you. I love you so much, but I'm just being super transparent right now. Someone said, man will waste years of a woman's life, then call her disloyal when she finally decides to move on. And I agree with that, because like, even though we've been married for even though we've been together for 7 years, like, if I wanted to just leave right now and go get my own place, I would look like the bad guy. Even though I'm giving you 7 years, 2 kids, I would look like the bad guy for walking out. And that, I hate that. I hate that. Like, let's normalize, but let's move on, because we're going to get to one that another one that I really like. All right, these are the last 2. Oh, this is the one. We need to normalize dating in separate houses. Moving in is more for marriage. And I love that. You know, even though we have lived together before, you know, my partner feels like if I was to move out or something, we would take like 10 steps back. And so he's not up for that at all. But I feel like we should normalize dating in different households if marriage is not on the table right now. But whatever. Okay, so here's the last one. Goals, finances, family, health, sex, time together. If these things aren't talked about enough or planned, they go without mention and sometimes become less and less important, causing hella strain on the marriage. And I agree, and that's where I'm at also. I feel like so many things need to be discussed when it comes to religion, finances. The list goes on. Like, those are just a couple from the top of my head, but the list goes on. Like, we have things that we need to discuss, like serious topics, before we try to get to that point. And that's why if he was to ask me right now, I would be so unsure, because I'm just like, there's too much we need to get in check before we get to that point. But I will say that if he was to ask me again, because that was what, 2021, we're in 2025. If he was to ask me again, I don't think I would say no, I believe I would say yes, but during the engagement, we would have to really dig deep and have uncomfortable conversations that we haven't been able to really have without somebody getting offended or walking away, or it getting a little hostile. So I would want us to get back into counseling and stuff like that. And I just feel like I don't want to just be married just to be married, just to say, oh, I have a ring on my finger, oh, he married me, I'm married now. I don't want that. That's not what I want for myself. I want a healthy marriage. I've been married before. I've had that kind of marriage where it was just all over the place. We separated this year, we back together, then we separated again. And that's why when we separated again, I said, I'm not doing this. I didn't get married to be separated and stuff like that. So, and that's when I went and filed for divorce. I'm like, if we can't get it together, then we're just done. And so I don't want to just be married. I want a healthy marriage. So I know there's a lot of people that's judging me. That's like, oh my God, she's pregnant again and he ain't even put a ring on her finger. He don't even want to marry her, this and that. I mean, people, they're going to say what they say. It bothers me none because, my son, he's in a 2-parent household. We're comfortable. We're healthy. We're good. If we get married, we get married. If we don't, we don't. And if I move on with my life, I move on with my life. Him, marrying me is not the biggest thing in my book right now. Like I said, if he don't marry me and I decide to walk away next year, then life goes on. You know what I mean? But, I know a lot of people are very judgmental, especially me announcing that I'm pregnant again. And, I guess on the outside looking in, it would look like, oh, he don't want to marry her. And if that's the case, then hopefully he can man up one day and be honest and just say, let me know I don't see marriage with you. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Like if I'm not the type that you will want to marry, that's fine. And that's why I said there's things we need to talk about, so it's been 7 years, only time will tell, but it's raining outside and I love the rain. So before Kobe gets home, I'm gonna try to lay down and take a nap. I've been busy every day. Like, even though I'm not working anymore, I haven't been working in about a week, there has not been a day to where I've just laid around the house and haven't went anywhere or haven't did anything or just been busy. Like, every day is just a full schedule to where I appreciate not getting off at 8 o'clock in the morning and having to still do all these things. So, yeah, I'm home for the day though, for the rest of the day. And I'm gonna enjoy this rain that's coming down. I can hear the thunder starting a little bit. I'm a rain fanatic. I'm obsessed. I love the rain. So I'm gonna go and enjoy that, lay next to the window and doze off. If anyone has any advice for me, being in a relationship for this amount of time and being unmarried with kids, if you've done it, if you're living it, if you feel like why you're against it, put that in the comments. I love reading comments. These comments I have wrote down that I have seen on Instagram and stuff, under different posts and stuff. I appreciate, even if I don't agree with it, I appreciate the advice, the comments, all of that. I appreciate it. So that was my why won't he marry me little story time, I guess you could call it. So anyway, I hope you have a great rest of the day, or however you're day is going. I hope it's beautiful. And I will check back in soon. All right, bye.